we're grateful that she still finds some ways to support Safe Routes to School, and she's even gotten Rucker to have some walking events, Rucker Elementary School, even though they're in a challenging location to be doing walking and biking events. So thank you, Martha. You can come up and get your photograph taken with us, and we have some.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you.
Yes.
Martha's also going to help out tonight a little bit with a raffle that we're doing for the high school mountain bike team down here in South County. So if you want, there's about 5 different things that they're raffling off of bike therapy, from a tune-up to a helmet, some gear. The tickets are $5 each, or you can get 5 for $20. And the drawing is on a Saturday. So if you want to get into a raffle, that's a good way to help out a local mountain bike team as well. Next up is presentations to the commission. This is a public comment by members of the public on items not on the agenda but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Bicycle Pedestrian Commission. And I believe I have Beth Sullivan.
Hello.
Hi, Beth.
Not really prepared as usual, but I just want to kind of do a follow-up. I've continued to be in contact with Caltrans regarding pruning of trees along Hager Pass and Bristol Road and Santa Teresa, with nothing happening yet. I've got no answer regarding that. I know that you, Zachary, have some information possibly regarding that. And I do want to thank the engineering department for giving their awesome talk last week on all of the projected things coming up in Gilroy, which answered all my questions about the striping and the roads. So thank you for that. It was a great presentation. Covered a lot of information, and that's very helpful for people. Thank you. This is way off here, but I just want to remind kids to not text and walk through the crosswalks. I know this is kind of out of the norm to say this, but I've just seen a lot of kids doing that. It's dangerous. Cars are not really watching for pedestrians as much as they should. So just be aware and try not to text while walking through the crosswalks. So if you have any information you can possibly share later or now regarding the pruning of the trees for safety along Hager Pass, Zach, that'd be great.
Well, I was going to mention it later, but I can totally give it now. So I've been working with Assembly Member Robert Rivas' office, and it's something that our commission's been trying to work on too, to at least get some shoulder clearance. And we understand that it's not a bike lane along Hager Pass from Santa Teresa to Watsonville Road, but it is a connector, and it is listed as a place where bicycles are allowed to ride. And just even further thinking about stuff that's happening in the future out there, we want that to be safe. So at least being able to clear the shoulder and turn back on the weeds. And then the historic status of those trees is something that I'm sure is preventing local maintenance, but hopefully we'll be able to work through all that and get that done. Because I know that you can provide some good history yourself on what that corridor used to look like.
Yes.
And how it sort of stopped looking that way.
So I'm going to pursue, just so the commission knows, the majority of the trees that are sticking out into the roadway there are not the trees that are protected, which are the cedars. The majority of the trees are trees, which are like a weed. They grow very easily. So I'm going to continue to pursue getting those trees for the safety of the bicyclists and the pedestrians along that road, and the drivers of the cars. And I think that's all I have to say. This is kind of out of boundaries of Gilroy, but it has pertained to Gilroy members that ride their bike past past the virtual road, which is the city limits. The city of Caltrans has been working on a project. They have a drainage ditch a little bit further. So they are now taking these big boulders out of the drainage ditch area just north of, west of Virtual Road, covering it with some smaller gravel, but the large rocks are still underneath. So I'm just kind of saying beware that that area still is an area of concern. It's not safe because the rocks are still underneath those smaller rocks. So take caution when riding past that area.
Thank you, Beth. Anybody else? Okay. Elisa, did you want to speak on the different item? Measure Bs? Okay. So the next item, 6B, I don't think Carolyn's here yet. She was on the train. So we'll, if you guys don't mind, we'll just hold off on that one and come back to that. So next up is the consent calendar. So just need a motion to pass the consent calendar.
I'll motion to pass the consent calendar.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, consent calendar passes. Okay, so next up is going to be the Gilroy Gardens Adventure Park proposal. I'll let Barb Granter introduce herself.
Okay, let's see if I can make this work. This is really exciting for me. This is thank you to the commission, to Zach, for inviting us to do this. Really, really fun to have an audience and have an audience for a whole new project. So I will try not to take too much time because I think most of you are pretty well aware, and then we can have some Q&A. I'm not sure how that is done appropriately, but I'm sure Zach will make sure that it is. So first of all, I just wanted to update you a little bit on what actually has been happening at the gardens itself in relation to this. So bear with us. Quite a few years ago, we started doing a master plan on the property. And I think most of you know that Gilroy Gardens leases from the city all 536 acres on which the little children's theme park sits. 350 of that, which is the hillside, about 36, which is the gardens, and then another 30 plus that is closer to 152. And about 5 years ago, the board decided to take a look at the overall master plan of the property in an effort to preserve the gardens, put it in the right light for it to go on for the next 10 to 20 years. So in July of 2016, we did an overall master plan of the property. In February of 2017, we actually did conceptual design of a full family water park that would fit within the bounds of the existing roads for Gilroy Gardens, which is one of the things recommended in the master plan. In February of 2018 is when we did the conceptual design of the hiking and mountain bike expansion. And that was in 3 parts. We did a marketing study. The company we hired, Select Contacts, did a marketing study, and then they did a business plan, and then they did an actual design of the facility. And then in March of 2019, we commissioned an economic impact study on all of that, on the master plan, on the existing park, and what would happen if the water park went in, and what would happen if the mountain bike park went in. So I'm going to share a small bit of that with you to put this in context. This is what the overall master plan would look like for the gardens area itself. This is the area that is not the hillside. Those 3 large blue sections are the sections that would be identified as a water area. The little blue section right in front of it, the light blue, baby blue, is the water oasis that we put in last year, the expansion we put in for $4.5 million. And the green area is kind of an adventure style attractions that were suggested to be at the garden that would anticipate being able to move up into the hillside. So it would start with little ones so that the entire property from a tourism perspective would bleed together up into that. Like rope courses and that kind of thing. That, of course, is what the whole thing looks like. So for those of you who aren't aware, that is the size of the hillside space. The light green, of course, is the gardens, including where the water park might go. And the purple area at the bottom is the valuable land you hear the city talking about as a base village, or as tourism grows in the area, that becomes incredibly valuable land for things like hotels, convention centers, restaurants, and that sort of thing, which It isn't ready to put in yet, but would be once we have some 365 tourism attractions in the area. This is how that piece of property connects to the Bay Area Ridge Trail. And I've got another slide that goes further. We had a presentation from Bart at our last our last board meeting, and Zach was there to show how those things connect so that the trails could go up through that 350 acres of hillside. You could almost connect to Mount Madonna, to where the trail is for Mount Madonna. Some of you may be more familiar with this type of slide. The red pieces that are solid are already existing parts of the Bay Area Ridge Trail, and the dotted lines are the ones that that particular organization is trying to get in. And this would show you how the whole thing would connect. So as you can see, this pointer will work. We're down here, and they're trying to get this section completed. If we manage to put in, what we discussed is if we manage to get the bike park in, you might be able to get until the entire thing went around the point. You might be able to get a shortcut across to Santa Teresa through the Gilroy Gardens property once that got developed. So they were pretty excited about the concept of being able to have connections for this trail. This is way too small for you to see, so I'll give you the short version. This is part of the economic impact study. As you can see, there are several columns. This is what the EPS did to say this is what the impact of the gardens that exists as it is now. This is what would happen if you put the water park in, adding the two together, and this is the mountain bike adventure park. As I said, it's too small, but it's divided into areas. Cash to the city, which is our lease, incredibly small amount of money compared to the rest of it. The green section is the money that sales tax, indirect induced impact, off-site spending, what tourism brings, the information that Jane always wants, who is from our Welcome Center and on our board. And then the blue area is the wages, how that affects. So in general, the tourism effect is about 2.5 million a year, and the job effect is about 7.9, so it's about 10.5 million per year that the existence of that tourist attraction brings to Gilroy. That goes up by another 3.3 if the water area went in, to be at about 13.8 or almost 14. That goes up another 7.6 with the mountain bike adventure park. So that just gives you some idea of how that money moves around. That's not cash to the city's coffers. This is how it affects the labor force in the city and how it affects the tourism effect. Okay, so now we can go to what you all want to see, which is this is the presentation that was done by Select Contracts, which is the company that the board hired to design the Gilroy Adventure Park. I'm not going to go through this in much detail because I think most of you have seen it. Just for those that haven't, some of the highlights. Let's do a page for me. Background, Select Contracts. So Select Contracts is a company that does an awful lot of these things around the world. They do adventure parks, surf parks, bike parks, theme parks, water parks, FECs, ski resorts. You'd probably know them best from a mountain bike situation in that they put in Whistler in Canada and at Banff, they put in the mountain bike trails and overlaid them on top of the ski trails. They put in the facility in Christchurch in New Zealand, and they're currently contracted to do something in Scotland. So their background is pretty strong in this. They obviously do full design, which they have done for us, right from concept. They do the actual build. They can operate, or they can operate for a time and then pass that operation on to another organization. And then this is some information on the background, and this was more for the city to understand the power of the Marth mountain biking community. I think most of you hopefully understand that, as you are all mountain bike enthusiasts. These are some locations that they have actually put facilities, so in over 71 countries and over 300 projects. And those are sort of a list of some of the smaller ones that they have done. They did a demographic study. as to where the mountain bikers are in this area and where we are in comparison to that and the amount of drive time. I think one of the interesting things they told us when we did the economic impact study was that 27% of the tourists, the 200,000 tourists they believe would be attracted by this type of attraction, 27% would be from outside the state and outside the country, as opposed to a typical regional theme park like Gilroy Gardens with the little tiny ones that really only pulls about 2.7. So the difference in what that brings to Gilroy is quite substantial, the difference of those two types of attractions. So a lot of this was demo and cycle tourism. That was information that the city needed to get interested in the project. List of where the other mountain bike parks are to show, how far people will be traveling, and that there isn't one in really close proximity. These, in fact, would help feed us if we got this facility in. And then some descriptions of what other things besides the mountain biking would happen. As you can see, there's a zip line there. So the active participation part of this, that there'd be skill-based activities, the mountain bike trails, there would be a zip line up to the top, a ropes course. So it's quite, the concept is quite built out with mountain biking being the cornerstone. This shows you, it's not a good slide, but this shows you the different trails that there is, there's a green trail for beginners, a blue trail for intermediates, a black trail for advanced. There's a hiking trail and a walking trail. There's a low ropes course at the top. This shows where the lift line and the zip line would be. I hiked a little way up it with Chris, and then he went the rest of the way up, and he would tell you, and especially because we did some drone work to have a look at the valleys, he would tell you that there is an incredible drop from a zip line perspective. So if you were to mountain biker and you still wanted to use the adventure park, taking a lift up to the top and taking the zip line down, that it's probably one of the best in California, that there's a beautiful drop off. That the trails themselves would go around. So he was pretty excited about that. There would be a top station with a little ropes course. So again, for people who are only doing zip lining or ropes course. The economic study suggested that of the 200,000, just over 50% might not actually be mountain bikers that would want to use the facility because it just gets you to the top of a mountain and they want to get up to the top and be able to come back down again. And that's a really stiff hike. It's a stiffer hike than Spring Trail at Mount Madonna. The top station would also have a restaurant, hopefully farm to table if we could pull that off, but it would be limited because the food has to go up with the lift. There is not access across the top. We don't own, or the city doesn't own the ridge. So you can't get across that trail that some of you may know exists, but doesn't have access yet. So the top station would have a low ropes course, it would have a cafe, you can see the zip line, and then the green, blue, and purple trails coming down. And then the bottom station would also have a cafe, and the base station would also have a retail area. Not a lot, there's enough bike stores in the community that we could rely on those, so it would be more rental and repair than it would be sale. And that's what the base station would look like. All of this, of course, is conceptual. Once we got further along, we might discover that things had to move for all sorts of reasons, but this is what the elements that would be necessary to make it successful. And that's a view of it tucked into the mountainside. So as you can see, it tucks in beautifully to that topography. Very difficult to find those buildings and all of that beautiful greenery and canopy. That's a renderings of plopping the buildings into the base of the hillside. And then next steps. And next steps are, this gentleman is suggesting that if he could have an appropriate lease with either the city or a sublease with Gilroy Gardens, as the board wants to be involved with their neighbors and wants to be involved in how that coalesces, that if he could have an appropriate sublease of 50 to 100 years, he could start looking for investors. So he's not asking for any money from anybody. He's saying, if you give me an appropriate lease, I will go find out if there are investors. to put this in. So that's where we are right now. And Chad, I will turn it back to you to ask some questions.
Thank you. I have one quick question. Can you, with your experience on running theme parks and stuff too, so how that money that comes back to the city, that 10%, and there's that way that it's calculated, is that like nationally? Are those usually the same percentage, or even like around the world, or is this unique because these parks would be on city land as opposed to like a private owner that
This one's
bought
really
it?
unique. This location is really unique. So the lease agreement that we currently have with the city is pretty unique. It was negotiated with a huge state theme park company called Cedar Fair. And they would have used to have a land lease with Great America. So they would have paid the city of Santa Clara. Our little baby theme park is very different than the larger ones. And usually they're land leases. When the city decided to purchase Gilroy Gardens, it didn't just purchase the land, it actually purchased the assets. So it owns the roller coasters and rides and everything that goes with it. And part of that was to protect the city from so that they had complete control if they needed that. So even when we put in something like the new water park, it reverts to city ownership. The only thing that Gilroy Gardens Family Theme Park Inc., the nonprofit, owns are computers and desks. So they have no assets.
Okay.
So it's a different relationship because that's why it's not a high rental situation. They actually own all of the assets and can borrow against it. The using of what we call EBITDA, or net profit, as a lease payment is very common.
That's what I was asking.
And the reason you do that rather than doing it on gross profit and do it on net profit, those are more simplistic terms, is think of when the mountain bike park, for instance, goes in, if you base this on how much you make in charging for the facility, and that's what the rent is, rather than how much profit you truly make after you have fixed the trails, put in new attractions every year, done your marketing, paid your staff. So that is an industry standard. How much do I take from it, or does the tourist attraction just pay for itself? In general, as Jane will tell you, tourist attractions pay for themselves. Your ROI is in jobs, and the tourism dollars that are moved around, they are not generally in cash. It is rare to find, for instance, a tourist attraction that you can get enough money from to fix your city sidewalks.
Understood. And your board is comprised of like members at large and a representative from the city council, right? So there's
currently the mayor is on our board. Jane is our tourism expert on the board. Robin Ed was also on our board. It's 8 people, relatively small, and they've been there most of them have been there for over 10 years. So very excited that they feel that they can expand and have the headspace to try and push a project like this through, when it really has little to do with operation or the budget of what Michael Bonfonte built so many years ago.
Before we open up to public comment, is there any questions that you all have for Barbara right now?
I don't have a question, but I just have a statement. I am for this initiative. I really see the benefit for the community. I have 2 small children, 7 and 10, and I know that I would visit this park if it was built.
Okay. Well, thank you. If you just stand by for a second. What I'll do is I'll open it up to public comment, and then we'll bring you back up to kind of like finalize everything if there's questions or anything.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Barb. So again, if anybody wants to speak, if you could please fill out a yellow card, that would help just keep things in order, and you can drop it over here with Sheila, or after we go through these yellow cards, if you want, you're free to come on up. Just state your name so we can have that for the record. So first would be John Parker, followed by Marcus Granberry.
Hello, thanks to the commission for having me tonight. My name is Sean Parker. I live in Campbell, California, and I support the Gilroy Adventure Theme Park. I believe mountain biking is a very healthy outdoor sport, and that bike parks are an ideal place for young riders to develop skills to expand on those trails and beyond those trails. And then after that, eventually those young riders go out with a love for the outdoors and become the conservationists that will continue to conserve wild areas, which I think is an important point about mountain biking. So beyond that, like everything else you guys have heard and everyone's gonna repeat, like it's a very healthy outdoor sport that will get kids on bikes and off the screens. Beyond that, I'm here representing Mountain Bikers of Santa Cruz. I sit on the advocacy committee with them. Mountain Bikers of Santa Cruz have been around since 1997. They're a nonprofit organization with professional full-time paid staff members that also lead volunteer trail work. Mountain Bike MBOSC volunteers have done over 25,000 hours of trail work since 2012. They've created a lot of trails in the area. The flow trail at Soco Devils State Forest is a notable example that was done with volunteer hours led by Mountain Bikers of Santa Cruz. Beyond that, the paid staff does professional trail design, consulting, and maintenance as a nonprofit with their money in shared situation, and also as trail work and construction for hire. So in closing, Mountain Bikers of Santa Cruz supports this park and hopes to see it to its fruition.
Thank you. Next up is Marcus, and then followed by, did you want to speak on? Followed by Martha Lara.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here, and it's really exciting to see have to sort of participate in the public process. It's a really refreshing change of pace. I'm here because I believe that bikes change lives. They changed my life. I grew up in Texas, and bikes in California, and I'm frankly here to stay. So I work with I'm also on the committee with MBOSC. All those people and myself. Like I said, we believe that is the case and Specialized. And so, first, number one, Specialized, we are supporting this. And we not only are we supporting this, we're saying, hey, when there's a shovel, when it's to the hillside, we're going to get driving. We just, whatever we need to do, we want to get involved. So, bikes change lives. There's a lot of research that shows that the more that you ride a bike, the better you're going to do in school, the better you're going to do in social interactions, and the more successful you're going to be in your life. The problem with that is it's increasingly hard to find a place to ride a bike. On the road, there's distracted drivers, there's kids texting in the crosswalk that we heard about earlier. There's just lots of things that are keeping you having a safe place to ride. And so providing something like this, a safe place to ride that's sort of open for the community, it would go a long way. And I also just want to echo everything said before. Can't really add much to that. It was very well said. And yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Martha? And then followed by Ross.
I think this is a very great project, and I know that my son, my 7-year-old, would love to get involved in mountain biking. I guess my question would be, what are thoughts about involving more in the community of Gilroy? It feels like we're focused on a lot of tourism or people coming from the outside. What happens to the underserved communities who may want to get involved with mountain biking, but they can't afford it? I know that right now, Gilroy Gardens does a great job of giving discounts, but I also know that a lot of the Gilroy communities who can't afford to go to Gilroy Gardens on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, go to the Gilroy. There's a yearly event where Gilroy residents get to go in for free. Are there going to be certain classes or scholarships? There are classes where are provided at other local communities to be able to participate.
Thank you, Martha.
Good evening. My name is Ross Heitkamp. I'm visiting down here from now. A long way to this hour of traffic.
Thank
you. At the time I've come use a adventure park. I'm here both as a mountain biker and hiker, and also a Ridge Trail advocate and volunteer. The area Ridge Trail, that is. So I'm really excited by the opportunities this provides with the land up there for connecting the Ridge Trail, and as well coming down off the ridge to connect into Madonna area and the Uvis Creek Trail, and then potentially across the valley to the other side, since this south end of the bay is kind of slow to develop for the Ridge Trail. A lot of private land. I guess one of the key parts of that would be making sure that there's no fee access allowed through this area. Since it's public city-owned land, hopefully specify something like that in the lease contract. I'd hope that maybe something like the hiking trail could be an uphill-only kind of bike route, so people can go both ways. A lot of people I think are going to be intrigued to take a lift and have an easy way up, but other people may want to get the exercise and come down the ridge, stop for a rest, come back the next day to finish the Ridge Trail as it continues on. So having just a good access to the public through there would be great. I think the facilities at the top there, the restaurant, that open to the public would be a really great amenity in the trail. It could be one of the first. And hopefully this may go beyond what the lease conditions would be, but hopefully they'd have single-use tickets for people who want to go up just to see the view. They're not going to be going up and down all day. Same for people that want to just get up to the Ridge Trail and continue on one way or the other. That kind of covers everything. I guess additionally, I've heard that the county parks would immediately start work to look at master planning for connecting this into Mount Madonna. So that connection's, I think, vague at this point, but that will develop quickly if you guys decide to move forward with this. Become a really good regional asset. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Aaron Takagishi. Did I say that right? Aaron, and then followed by Connie Rogers.
Hi, I am in support of this project. I actually have one question, and I apologize if it's actually already answered in the plan. But I have concern about a pay-to-play aspect of it. I think it's really important that it's open to everyone, and especially everyone in our community. And in particular, I'm not sure if there is a paved easy trail that has been planned that's kind of large enough for people to exercise on, that people can come. I feel like that is a really big need in our community. I go to Harvey Bear all the time, and I see that trail, that 2-mile loop that's paved, is used all the time with families. And I'm a mother of 2 children, and I know, and I'm part of that mom community here, and I know that that's a space that we will use, that we need. And also, if there was, I don't know if there's like a common space where people can congregate or spend time as a multi-use area for like corporate events or weddings or parties. That seems like that can also be a tapped source of income. Not sure if that's part of the plan. Just some ideas I'm thinking of. But I feel pretty strongly about the pay-to-play, that we should not have just pay-to-play and an easy one.
Thank you. Connie Rogers, followed by James Nixon. Hi, Connie.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for having this public hearing, as it were. I've been a community volunteer for at least 40 years, and my husband has been one of the original docents at Gilroy Gardens. So I'm just representing ourselves and saying we're very much in favor of this project. It's perfect. It makes healthy, good use of otherwise unusable land because it's unbuildable and it provides a large public benefit. I do think some of the previous speakers were right on target when they asked about public usage, for the connection with the Bay Trail, and if people who aren't paying to use the lift part, might have access just for hiking. Anyway, I want to go on record as saying we're very much in support and would like to help you do anything, necessary to see it happen. The second thing I want to do is commend the whole commission for taking a larger role in the public planning process, because you have made yourselves more visible and influential and helpful than we have seen in a long time. So that's good. And thirdly, as the president of the Historical Society, I would like to see you partner a little bit more with us in terms of marking the Juan Bautista de Anza Trail. And, if, for instance, if we had known that Meritage was going to build the little park at the corner of Santa Teresa, it would have been the perfect place to have a sign explaining the significance of the cedar trees that are on the National Register. That's it, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Connie. Next up is James Nixon, followed by Jeff McPhail.
Hello, and thank you. I'm a resident of San Jose and work up in Morgan Hill at Specialized, as well as help volunteer with Outride, which is a nonprofit that focuses on getting kids in schools. And I know you guys probably are aware that a handful of schools here in Gilroy are part of the Outride program. And the whole idea is to get youth riding and using the community and the trails in their area. And as we start to foster this future of riders locally here in Gilroy, it's really important to us to figure out, as these kids move through the program, where they're going to ride after they finish the program. So I'm in favor of the park and having a place for kids to ride beyond the school program. And on behalf of Specialized, I just want to raise the question about the potential use of electric bikes at this park. As we know that as people have places to ride, one of the biggest criticisms that we get is, oh, we're going to go ride our bike. We load our bikes onto cars and drive to a place to ride our bike. One of the cool things about electric bikes is it allows you to eliminate that first trip. So it encourages people in the local area to get out and actually ride to the park itself and then utilize the park and then come back. This helps for multiple reasons as far as parking and logistics of the development of the park, as well as just greater awareness for people and use of the park as they see people riding towards it. So I'm in favor of e-bikes at the park, as well as climbing trails as well at the park. So it's not just a simple lift access downhill park. A lot of people who might not be as interested in gravity riding and want to do more country style riding can accommodate riding up and coming down as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Jeff McPhail, followed by Zach West.
I just had a few comments just to make to the commission. I just been so thankful just for the opportunity for this meeting to happen and for the public to come and either show dislike or support for the project. Growing up in Gilroy, I have often looked at that mountain range and been in wonder of why in the world can't we get bikes up there. A long time ago, Christmas Hill Park used to have these hidden jumps, and they were really secret and elusive to anybody who rode BMX in this community. And it was something that we would go and we would watch these older guys, as being a young kid, just go and throw themselves over these jumps, and it inspired us as young kids to really get on bikes and to be active. And it's, for me, something that I want to be able to pass on to my kids, the same awe and wonder that I have for the outdoors and riding bikes to them. And I just am in favor of the project, and I think it's a great concept, and it gets more people in the community to participate in the outdoors and away from our day-to-day hustle that we're constantly in, and being able to just look around and spend time with each other as a family is something I think is something that this community needs more of. So that's just a comment, and thankful to the commission for allowing this. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Zach West, followed by Jody Hall.
Hello, I'm super excited right now. I just got done building jumps all day today, so I promise I'm not a this. But yeah, I think having a mountain bike park in this area especially would be super beneficial because most mountain bike parks are at ski resorts and tends to snow there like most of the year. So I think having a spot that people can go ride mountain bikes and like all year round would be super awesome. I think you'd see a lot of people come from like places like Canada where there's a lot of people riding mountain bikes up there and like Tahoe and stuff. So I think it would save a lot of trips for people that have to wait for it. But yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Jody Hall, followed by Dylan Hall. The Halls.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Jody Hall. I own Bike Therapy, which is a bike shop in Marth with my husband. And I just want to say thank you, and we, of course, support this project wholeheartedly. We truly believe that biking is the great equalizer. No matter how old you are, how much money you have, if you can ride a bike and get out into the fresh air. When I started mountain biking, I was 30-something, no, late 20s, and I discovered parts of Skyline, parts of the Santa Cruz Cruise Hills that I never would have ever found. And I really treasure that, and I think that it's really important to offer different ways for people to enjoy the outdoors. The tourism aspect is great. I think it's super cool that we'll connect the Bay Area Ridge Trail. And I think it's great to bring people here, but I think community, it's also going to make a huge difference for the community. And I do agree with some of the people that have come before about space to have events and meet. I used to be involved with Trips for Kids, and we used to bring kids from different low-income schools out for a bike ride, and it was life-changing for them and for the people that were involved on the rides. We also have started a mountain bike team, and some of the members of the team are here tonight. And it's just such a great way, again, to get kids out on bikes. And I think everybody will really get a lot of use out of it and appreciate it. And lastly, we will get a lot of people off the roads on their bikes. The roads are indisputably dangerous, more dangerous than ever to bike on. So that's why I love mountain biking. So anyway, thank you, and I appreciate you having this one.
Thank you, Jody. Next up is Dylan Hall, followed by Bob Steed.
Hello, my name is Dylan Hall. I just want to say that I'm a mountain biker and do some sports. I just want to say that I'm in full support of this bike park. It's going to come to Gilroy. I'm super excited.
Good job, Dylan. Bob Steed, followed by Marcus.
Hello, I'm Bob Steed. I live in Gilroy, and I just want to first thank the Commission and everyone else who's worked really hard to propose this bike park and get as far as we've gotten. And I think my wife Erin was up here earlier talking about access, that is free access to the community. You will attract people from all over the area. We know that. People from out of the state, probably out of the country, will come to Gilroy, spend money, go to the bike park, get a lift ticket, eat at the restaurant. But for something for the community, this is something that it might just be an afternoon for a family. In the summertime, that could be midweek. In the wintertime, that might just be a weekend, Saturday or Sunday, for a family to go out and explore the trails. So with that in mind, I'd like to make sure that if and when there's discussion, at least, and with someone who's going to be, you have to work out a contract with provider services, that we don't give them exclusive use for a certain amount of time. If you look at trails in Mount Madonna, Henry Cove, these are just trails. People can go on anytime. Henry Cove is open 24 hours a day. I can go right now with my lights and my bike and do a night ride and come back 2 hours later, refresh after a day of work. A lot of times people have different schedules. There's before school, after school, before work, after work. So make sure that if we have an official bike park that has a lift that's operated by a concessionaire, that we don't limit the access to the land, which is city-owned land, like any other park we have here. I understand they might not want to open all night, but if I can go to Los Alamos Park at 6 in the morning, run around the park, or go to, go for a picnic and it goes into the evening, I should be able to do that. And I don't think we should be any different at the land that city owns behind Gilroy Gardens. So this would be a way to access the trails at 6 in the morning before work. Go for a ride. Not necessarily have to have a lift open, but one of the trails could be an uphill, easy trail for mountain bikes or hiking or running, same thing. That has nothing to do with the lift. As much as I would love to lift surf, I might go out there and ride my bike up to the top of the mountain before the lift opens and get a run in down, and then the lift opens and I take the lift the rest of the day. But in general, I think access is really important. That would be not limited by time. 24 hours, not 24 hours, but basically daylight hours, maybe into the evening, 365 days a year, without having to have a staff member or a person there to say you can or can't use the trails. And kind of in conjunction with that, and also so kids, I've got 2 kids, I want them to be able to ride safely to the park. I know earlier we were talking about Highway 152. There's that section that's basically death if you're on a mountain bike or a bike riding between Santa Teresa and the bridge. There's no shoulder. You're at the mercy of hoping the person's not texting while they're driving, knock you off the road. So yeah, long term it might be nice to have. We can try to get a bike lane on 152 for more direct access. But for the kids, we have the creek trail, the paved creek trail, which went in recently, which is great. And right now it ends about 50, 100 yards before 152, right before the bridge. It'd be nice if part of the planning process for the park would include getting that trail where it ends at a gate, get that to 152, maybe section off the second part of that bridge that goes across the creek, and create a protected bike path from the end of that standard bike path to the Gilroy Gardens or the start of the bike park. Not only would it be good for the bike park, but it'd also be good for Gilroy Gardens. Like right now, we have a season pass at Gilroy Gardens. We drive, and all I see is a six-car lane, sort of a highway to Gilroy Gardens, and I wouldn't feel safe with a bike trailer, trying to go to Gilroy Gardens right now. So I don't think it would cost very much. It's just a matter of getting in the plan to get sort of bike-friendly, family-friendly access to the park. And again, it's not very far to go. But, thank you for your work.
Thank you. Next up is Marcus, followed by Kelly.
Hi, I'm Marcus. I'm a local rider. I'm also on the South Valley team, like mountain bike team here. And I think this whole park thing is a great idea. To have more park and more variety of riding for like all sorts of riders. I think it's great for our community because like the mountain bike team is kind of growing around here, and it's really great to see that the city here is helping like build it up. So I want to thank you guys.
Thank you. Kelly? Is it there? I'm sorry, I don't want to butcher your last name. OJ. Kelly OJ. And then last will be Beth Sullivan.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Leger. I'm a resident here in Gilroy. I've been mountain biking for about 5 years. I'm a member of Mountain Bikers Group. I'm also a member of the SRTS Trail Stewardship. Maybe familiar with them. They have helped revive local towns like Downeyville and Quincy through mountain biking. And it's been really amazing what they've done in in those communities as they've seen their golf courses die off. Mountain biking has really helped them with tourism and generated their economies there. And although we're not quite as small as those communities, there's definitely an economic benefit to bringing something like this to the area. I have to often drive to Santa Cruz, where I'm a member of Girls Rock. It's a mountain biking organization for women. We offer free, no-drop rides each month. And the beauty of that is that if you open something like this, you're going to open the community to having groups like that to start here. And so you will have more access, like we were talking about earlier. We have free demo fleets of a lot of these rides that introduce women to mountain biking, and that's something that potentially could be happening here in our community. This project has me excited because I have 2 little kids, and right now I find it difficult to find activities for them close by. Hiking, adventure course, that speaks to me. That speaks to me as a mother, it speaks to me as a woman. I really am excited because I have to go to Mount Hermon right now to zip line for the adventure course. When I bike, I go to Santa Cruz. I pump my money into their community, and I can do it right here in my backyard. I'm spending money on lunch, coffee, gas. I've spent the night in Santa Cruz, although it's only over the hill. When I have an event first thing in the morning, I don't want to make that drive. If it's here in my backyard, I'm going to use it. Look at the diversity here in this room tonight. You've got kids talking at your microphone. You've got women, men. The potential for this project is amazing. And I really hope that you guys will be in favor of it because I, as a Gilroy resident, am so excited about this.
Thank you. Is Beth still here or did she step out? Oh, there you are. Hi, that's Sullivan.
So I think I'm the party pooper person. I'm not for or against this project, but the reality is that the company that would put this park in has to spend a lot of money to put the park in, and I'm not sure that it's going to be open to the public as much as we would like if it gets open. It would be fantastic. But all this should be worked in when the plans are being made. The park will have liability issues as the city of Gilroy does with the park now. And I'm hoping that it will be open to the public more so than just for the cost of entrance to the park. Maybe Barb can answer this when she comes up here. Would the park be, the bike park be separate from Bond County Gardens? Okay, so it would be separate from Bond County Gardens. Okay, so separate. It sounds awesome because all of, Bond County Gardens kind of reaches an age limit in the park. So the kids don't have any, as much fun when they reach 12, 13, 14. They don't feel as fun, but the bike park would be open from young kids to adults. And I think that's a fantastic thing. As far as, I'm just commenting also on some of the comments I heard. Gilroy would be owned, it does own the property, but being leased by the company that's going to build this, again, it's a huge financial commitment to that company and liability to have an open park. So hopefully something can be worked in that it can be used for the community, the local community, at an extreme discounted price, or I don't know how it would work, but that's my concern. That it would not actually be open to the public, open to people to ride as much as they would like to. Again, I don't have a comment for or against the park yet. We'll see.
Thank you, Beth.
I think it's a fantastic idea.
Thank you. Barb, you just want to come up for a second? I'll preface it. So I understand that right now what Chris Sutton in his presentation, what he's looking for is an agreement to lease. That's what he needs in order to go out. So I can these guys can attest too, and so can City Council. As of today at 1 p.m., I haven't checked my email since. I've received over 170 emails in positive support for this. And a lot of it reciprocates exactly what everybody just said. And not only that, but we received a letter of support from the South County Mountain Bike Team, Santa Clara County Parks, which echoed exactly what the Ridge Trail was talking about. Bike Therapy wrote in, Garlic City BMX, which is building that dirt pump track. A lot of local support and regional. And I wasn't expecting that much that much activity, but I want you all to know though that a lot of the questions that were brought up, like involving getting the underserved community access there, a pay to play access for during city park hours. That this is everything that Barb and the board will definitely understand your support and what you're willing to want to get out of it. And at the same time, our commission will remember these things when it does come back to that point where a lease is negotiated. One of the reasons why I really wanted to get this out in the open ahead of time is that sometimes the city decides to go into closed session on a lot of negotiations, and that leaves out this right here, because you can't really come in and speak about closed session stuff as openly as we can. So thank you for everybody driving out here, and for the community coming out. I really appreciate it. So if you want to comment on any of those, go ahead.
I would like to comment.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for, I don't remember the name, but thank you for the question about whether this would be a separate entity. I think that's very important for the public to understand. While the board of Gilroy Gardens wanting to know its neighbors and wanting there to be synergy and shared use of certain things like parking lots, needs to be involved. This is indeed a separate company because we don't have the capital to put this in. And the city doesn't have the capital to put this in. It's a $30 million project. The first $2.5 million is the most difficult because it has to get through environmental study. So whoever puts in the first $2.5 million has a much higher risk about whether they lose their investment. Once the $2.5 million, once we get it through planning, then it's a little easier to know where you are and for other investors. So what, as Zach said, what Chris Sutton, the gentleman from Select Contracts, is looking for at the moment is the ability to start the process to see if he can find the money. If he can't find the money, we don't have it. Nobody has enough. So I don't want to talk about the lease and what would be negotiated, because it isn't my place to do that unless it's a sublease with the gardens. And even then, it's something that would be difficult to discuss in this forum. But I am very comfortable saying that in the presentation, there is public access. So he's already done a presentation to the board, he's done a presentation to the city council, this started several years ago. And the models for these sorts of things is, as one gentleman said, by all means, the lift has to pay for itself, and the zip lines have to pay for themselves, and somebody's got to put it in. They are generally designed working with counties and cities and states in order to provide public access for bikers. So is that part of the model? I don't want to give you details because I'll say something that isn't true, but nobody is suggesting that someone can't get access with their mountain bike to a trail that's put in somehow. And you can only do it on Tuesdays. So somewhere in there that model exists. My other assumption is that is part of once it gets through planning and we can know we can build it, then you get into those sorts of things where the community could be consulted and you have a group of people that are going to watch out for those sorts of things so that we can make sure we do that. I also think, speaking to some of the other people in the room, that there are a lot of organizations that understand the health and wellness of the biking community, and there is money specialized. There is money out there to assist for our groups, and I don't have that, but somewhere out there, there are people who want to make sure children get access to these sorts of things. And I think as a community, we can make sure that we tap into those things once we get it built. And I think those are all really important subjects. So I just keep being aware. Let us, what we need at the moment is support so that the city council recognizes that the public would like us to proceed, and for us to see if this gentleman who wants to put it in can find backers. And he's not finding donors, finding backers. They have to make their money. So in that sense, it's a business, and he needs to take his business model to people with money and say, do you want to invest in this and invest in this community? And once we get that going, then we go back to what are the nuts and bolts. And then finally, I need a plug for the gardens. There is not a child in this community that can't read their way to a free ticket. You need to go to our local library 5 times and present that shit, and it's free. A child can in fact read their way to their entire family's ticket. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that. Okay.
Thank you.
Is it okay to add something?
You can come back up if you want. Just come. You want to come up and say something? Sure. That's fine.
Yeah, Mike. I'm not off that.
Just state your name so Sheila can get it.
Mike Amaral. One thing that for almost living the history, I've been writing since 1981. Santa Clara County, to me, and along with Marin, is the birthplace of mountain biking. And to be able to do something, this is almost unbelievable when I read it in the paper. Is this real? Because to have this enthusiasm, and everybody here almost knows everybody, we're all the cycling community. And I just want to go on record as being so much in support of this, because as I founded a group, Henrico Riders, there's what you could do in a racing venue at that, it could be world class up there, and that would bring people from all over the world to Gilroy. So again, I couldn't help myself. I had to come up and say something.
Nice going.
Thank you.
I just want to follow up too before we bring it back for discussion. Just a couple of some other stats. So last year, the outdoor industry generated $92 billion in consumer spending, $6.2 billion in state and local tax revenue, and 691,000 jobs. Just some stats to throw out there. And I do know too, with all these organizations that really want to build public access, especially for the Bay Area Ridge Trail, that Santa Clara County Parks doesn't have a whole lot of that's open for mountain biking, but what they are willing to do, if this can start getting through, is to bridge those gaps so that folks can spend the night and camp at Mount Madonna and actually have an all-access trail to the park to be able to ride your bikes. So another e-bike thing coming from being able to camp and actually go over there. So it's back to us here at the commission. Does anybody have any discussion, anything they want to say? Or, I mean, we obviously know what I've sort of written down a little bit about what maybe the motion should sound like, but the floor is ours.
I've made my point pretty clear. I'm for this park. I think it would benefit this community. It really aligns with our commission's goals to get cars off the road, to get people out there. Being how I'm a rider, so I'm not a biker, but I'm still for this. It benefits everybody. So I just can't say this enough. Thank you for everyone that's come here. It's really been a wonderful show of support, and it really makes me proud to be a part of this community.
So I'm echoing Patrick's comment as well. And for the people that made the comment in regards to public access or any type of restrictions for scheduling, I'm on the same page as you guys, so I'll be looking out for supporting that.
I moved here 20 years ago, and the first thing I did is I got a mountain bike that could ride roads pretty well, because I immediately recognized how great this area is for doing that kind of thing. And I'm not suggesting, I hear the audience loud and clear about the need for public access, because I can relate to that. I lived at the base of the hills in the valley, and I would ride roads up to Henrico and then sometimes mountain bike from there. But that's pretty crazy. I don't like having to do that. And now that I have kids, I don't have time to do that. I really enjoy, for the second thing I got into here was trail running and hiking. And we have a great area for that, and I can access great places with a 10-minute drive. But, it's a pain to have to drive there. One thing I really like about this project is it could be close enough that I really could ride with myself or with my kids to access this. So it's important to me also that I'll be keeping an eye on that there is good public access to be able to get exercise and not just have the downhill ability. And as far as some of the concerns about people being able to use this that are communities in Gilroy, we do have programs here that help kids to be able to get bikes or get their bikes repaired. One of them is called Turning Wheels for Kids. They do a big bike build every Thanksgiving time that you can get involved in. And we connect with them. We're connected with Specialized to help make sure that maybe kids in need have access to bikes and can go use this area as well to get exercise and be physically active, which is a huge need in our community, in particular in Santa Clara County. We tend to have some great things going on and great opportunities, but we also have a large population that really needs help financially, needs help making sure that they're getting in our exercise. So we definitely, I support this, and I'm also supportive of making sure that we keep it accessible to all of our community members. Want to make sure everyone in the audience was aware that we now will be having all 3 middle schools in Gilroy through Specialized will be having a middle school bike program. And that's amazing and awesome, and we want to, this would just be another opportunity for those kids to get out there and have some place to go ride. And someone was just mentioning the birthplace of mountain biking. I watched an interesting documentary recently, and I did not realize I knew about Marin, but some of the really innovative things actually happened here in Santa Clara County. So, you know, why not have a great place to go ride right here too? So I think that's all I have to say about it for now.
All right, so here's what I'm thinking for the motion. It sounds like what Select Contracts need right now is an agreement to lease. It sounds that agreement to lease will allow them to go out and seek capital. That's specifically what they need. So I would say that I guess the way the motion could read is recommend to City Council that that City of Gilroy or Gilroy Gardens enter into an agreement to lease with Select Contracts. I don't know. We don't have other side information to know whether City of Gilroy is better or Gilroy Gardens is better. I don't know. All we know is what we've been told and right now. So that gives leeway to City Council. And like I said, this is a recommendation. This is a room full of cheerleaders and supporters for the City Council to really understand clearly what the community wants. So I'll read the motion again. It's to recommend to City Council that City of Gilroy or the Gilroy Gardens enter into agreement to lease with Select Contracts.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion passes. And thank you again for showing up. This is a great crowd. We love it. Do not feel the need to stick around. We would love for you to stick around so you can see all the other cool stuff we do to keep bikes moving in this town. By all means, just a thank you from our commission. We really appreciate it.
One more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Someone brought up an important issue about accessing, this park via Highway 152. That there are improvements coming very soon to that, and our commission also supports building a bridge across the creek to be able to get there. But that's a huge financial issue to try to get the bridge. The other improvements will be coming soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
I don't see Shiloh in the audience. Gary, do you want to? Is Neuron? Oh, there she is right there. Sorry. Would you like Neuron to be able to do the back end angle before we talk about Measure B stuff? Measure B? Come on. Yeah. What's up?
He's asking if you can get this sign for points to be attended.
It's the first time we've had one of those. They come to City Council.
Do you need more than that, or is that just signature? Okay, thank you.
What's cool?
Am I passed?
No, you're not.
No, we'll still put.
Carolyn, we're gonna do the Measure B, and encouragement. then we'll get you up after that. Does that sound good?
I'll sit and breathe for a minute first.
Okay. All right, so next up we're going to do new business, item 9B, which is Measure B, education and encouragement. There's two forms actually, and I'll pull one up on the computer. There's going to be the information that Shiloh brought from the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition, and then we also, in your packets, there's also a work plan that we drafted up, which pretty much covers everything that we do already as a commission, and trying to formulate that into to make it work to getting some funding from Measure B. Shiloh, do you wanna just come up to kick off the discussion, and I'll pull up on here too. Do you want to represent?
All right, well, thank you so much for reaching out and inviting me as a representative of Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition here. Just seeing if I can see better with my glasses on or off. I think off. Getting old. Fortunately, I can still ride a bike. Okay, so you guys know the exciting news is that in 2016 we passed Measure B, which was a transportation sales tax measure, and now cities are getting money to spend on various things. We at Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition worked hard in the development of the measure to make sure that there was a significant portion set aside for bicycle and pedestrian, both infrastructure and education and encouragement. And now we're seeing the results of the fruits of our labor. And you all are going to be getting an annual allocation of money to spend on getting folks to ride bikes. So, essentially, I'm here because I wanted to help continue a conversation that you guys have started about, gosh, now that we're getting this money, what should we do with it? And so I wanted to share with you how SVBC is thinking about the various pots of money that are available and the various types of programs that you might consider as you guys are thinking about how you're going to spend $35,000 a year. And I think you're actually going to get twice that in the first year. I think that's how it's going to work. And I think this was sent to you all, so you can peruse it at your leisure. I'm not going to go over the case studies and the preamble here. I'm going to skip directly to some of the ideas that we're talking with cities about. And this is just, I mean, you guys, this isn't new stuff. We all have great ideas. From the Bike Coalition's perspective, what we are particularly interested in, and I'm sure you are as well, we all are, is using this money on things that result in lasting, sticky behavior change. You know, we at SVBC, we're the implementers of safe routes to schools, and we'll go in and we'll do every school will get one in-class education session and one rodeo. And at the end of the day, we ask ourselves, did it make a difference? You know, are we seeing those kids ride more? And are we seeing, importantly, the parents convinced that their kids are safe riding to school? So these are the questions that we have in our mind is, you've got this money, and let's talk about ways that we can spend it so that we actually are changing behavior, we're spreading the joy of bicycling, we're creating lasting memories, we're saving the planet, we're helping our populace, all that good stuff. So some of the things that we are suggesting, folks like you consider, are just fun ways to get people out on a bike. So this has to do with organizing, using fun and a bike ride to lure new people to try riding. And we did this at SUBC, we did this for the city of San Jose last year. We organized 6 rides where cities and other nonprofits to bring different constituencies into the biking movement. So for example, we did a Bakes and Bikes ride where we partnered with bakeries in downtown San Jose, and we all went around and we ate lots of cannoli, lots of cinnamon bread, and lots of baklava. And we did not lose any weight on that ride, but that's an example of the kind of ride that we would suggest. Use bike rides, have an educational component as a part of the ride, and partner with local folks who can, where you're supporting local businesses, you're highlighting different cultural elements of your community by partnering with different nonprofits. Like we did a housing ride where we went around to different affordable housing developments in conjunction with Affordable Housing Week so that folks could learn about affordable housing issues as well. So that's one idea. Another one is we have a program called Pedal to Health, and this is kind of the flip side of Safe Routes to Schools. We know that we want to go into schools and insert ourselves into a child's life early before they develop those nasty car driving habits, and just make sure kids are introduced to the fun of riding a bike, so that when they finish going to college and get on a bike again, which is the reality of how things go, they remember how wonderful it was. So that is our strategy in the bike movement, is to get in front of kids early. This program, and do that through the schools. This program is the same concept, but it's flipping it to not go through schools, but to go to where kids live, and specifically to partner with affordable housing developers to go to where these communities exist, something built by like First Community Housing or Mid-Penn or CORE, one of your local affordable housing developers, South County Housing, and to work with the property management there to bring a bike safety education to affordable housing communities. So we do stuff in the schools. We also want to get as kids and families where they live as well. So that's what Pedal to Health is. And that, that's how we do bike rides, we do bike safety education, all that good stuff. And we, just as is the case with Safe Routes programs, where we're trying to find champions within the schools, the same goes for affordable housing developments, where you're trying to find residents who are just, they got the fire in the belly for bikes, and so once we leave, they're going to keep on doing stuff. Bike to Work Day. This is a flagship program that is completely focused on getting new people to try riding. This is the one day a year, and it goes throughout the month, where it's normal for people to arrive to work a little bit fragrant, a little bit sweaty, a little bit, their hair wind blown, and that it's okay because everyone is doing it. And so you all at Gilroy could decide, well, we really want to beef up our Bike to Work Day program because that's the time when we all come together and we're getting newbies to ride. And there's a bunch of different things that we do and that are offered through Bike to Work Day. Commute workshops, there's an online website called Love to Ride, where we gamify bicycling. Teams, they log their rides, you win virtual prizes, you get bragging rights. So it's a fun way of getting new people to ride. I'll add on Love to Ride, a while ago we had a different iteration of this program where at first it was like, the person who rides a lot and wears spandex could win because we were just tallying how many miles we ride. And at some point we said, well, we're not trying to get the already rider to ride more. I mean, that's a good thing. Really, we want to get new people riding. And so the way we have Love to Ride structured now is you do get points for riding a lot of miles, but you get advantaged even more for the number of new people you start to get riding. So you get points for recruiting newbies. Bike Buddies, this is a program that we do not currently run, but would love to help seed. We were running a bike pool program in a couple places, in Mountain View and San Jose. And after doing some focus groups with folks, we found that people liked the idea of a bike pool, but it really wasn't catching on because, you know, you've got to, if you're starting at a coffee shop at 7 or 7:30, you're really only attracting the folks who can be there at that certain time. And for parents or people who are on a constrained schedule, it might not work as well. So as we did these focus groups, the feedback that we got was, you know, I like a bike pool program, but what I really need is a bike. I need someone who can be like a handholder for me and answer my questions. Like, I need to buy a bike. What do I ride? What kind of bike should I get? Where should I ride? What should I wear? So this is something we'd like to pursue in the future, is developing a cohort of bike buddies who say, yep, I want to help other people ride. Sign me up to be like a bike tutor person. Another option for you all to consider is bike parking, valet bike parking. So, you know, target a few big events, maybe something like the Gilroy Garlic Festival, where you say to everybody who's going to be coming, hey, ride your bike here. I know I have tried to get to the Gilroy Garlic Festival from San Jose, and the traffic is nightmarish. But you could, you know, your art and wine festivals, you know, whatever events you have, you could offer valet bike parking, because we know that safe parking is a barrier for folks to riding a bike. And then the last one here is schools-based education. That's safe routes to school stuff. So, and you guys, you know about that. The one thing I will say about that is going back to my original comment, which is, you know, when anyone has a finite amount of money, you want to be fair and distribute it to every school equally, right? And what we're suggesting at the Bike Coalition is it might be okay to take a step back and decide, you know, we're gonna pump a bunch of resources into this particular place or this particular school instead of trying to spread it out equally amongst everyone, so that we get an actual impact and real behavior change in that one place instead of trying to peanut butter around money. So with that, I will stop, and I would love to, I don't know if you want me to stay up here or if you guys want to talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, we'll just probably talk.
Great.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Shana. So if the record wants to say that Chad actually made it, Chad's here. Chad's present. So in your guys' packet, I drafted up like a work plan, which is basically I use the format that we use for every other work plan we've done for this commission. The difference is that I was trying to formulate something that would work for the folks at VTA with Measure B, and for staff, since we don't really have like a template that we're using, you know, to try to gain reimbursement. And what I just focused on is just the events that we already do ourselves, and that's basically Bike to Work Day, Party in the Park, Turning Wheels at the Gilroy Library, National Night Out, and the South County Health Fair. Those are sort of like our main focus things that we do throughout the year. I know that there's been other groups that have asked us to come to other stuff. It's just, you know, the resources to be able to give away, you know, are limited. And we have so many helmets and personal time and that kind of stuff. But another thing too that I wanted to add in here were stuff that we need that is allowed underneath this is stuff to make us look a little more professional out there. Neron was super cool and let us have that banner for a few years, and we recycled it a lot. But you know, it blows in the wind, and it finally got torn, I think, this year at Party in the Park. So it would be nice to have, you know, stuff like a pop-up tent, a nice little table linen. What me and Sean found when we were giving out helmets is that a lot of times these events have passports, and so they come around, and so one of us would be like scribbling our name and then Sean would be doing the helmet, we'd flip flop. It'd be so much easier because a lot of organizations have stamps, and so they know, you would just do a quick stamp. So whether it's a bike stamp, something specific to us, maybe a couple different colors, that would make things a lot easier. Walk bike Gilroy specific stickers, I think would be something, just different and cool to give out incentives that we already do for GUSD that are really popular, things like sunglasses, pencils, erasers, all that kind of stuff we don't have anymore. And so either we're relying on like the homeschool clubs to do it, or if we're going to, take charge and be able to have some incentives, that would be really nice. And I know Chad's going to like that next one, is that because he, on Bike to Work Day, he's always trying to get that Palo Alto cycling shirt. I want to design either a walk specific Gilroy shirt or a bike one. It doesn't have to be a combo walk bike. It could be a walk Gilroy and a bike Gilroy. And then I think that I really like the way Shiloh said how you can be specific. You don't have to blanket everybody with the same thing. You might have a core group of people that all they do is walk. And Mr. Howe is one of those, the community member that he walks the street. He doesn't want to have a bike on his shirt. So I like having that sort of camaraderie for Gilroy. And then another thing to give out that's always handy, and it's nice it's good publicity, is obviously a water bottle. So that's really all I have to add right now for this thing. If there's any discussion up here, or Sean, if you think any of the stuff that we were doing with the Safe Routes to School should be in this topic, or bring it up with your updates.
We could have some discussion. I'm not sure if maybe we'll need to keep coming back to this in future months, and also, the city has discussed, putting out an RFP with some specific things that we request from someone we may contract with, like SBPC or somebody else. So I'm not sure what, how many decisions we'll be making tonight. But I agree, I support that, there's some things that our commission needs for the events that we already attend, like Zach was talking about. I could talk briefly about some of the things that were just presented to us, that, what I think of some of them. But again, we'll be talking about this in future months as well, so we can keep thinking about it, is what I'm imagining. One thing that came up thinking about several of these is, we're down here in Gilroy. We're a little separate from most of the rest of the county, and we have a pretty good network. Our commission here has a pretty good network with a lot of community agencies and the community itself. And so the challenge I see for like the coalition would be, they're going to need to work with us and some other people to get connected with anyone for any of these things to be able to succeed very well, I would imagine. I don't know if some of these would take off very well without our help. And so sometimes that becomes a sustainability issue as far as who's on the commission and how much time they have. We've tried some of these things, and some of them, there's some seeds planted. We do have some affordable housing that's gone in that we've tried to reach out to see if we can get some things started. And maybe we could use some help with that and get something going. But I want to look at if there's really interest in the community. We've kind of had trouble getting that going, even with support from various people. Another issue, I know the coalition has some staff they could send down to help. But again, we're in Gilroy, although with traffic issues, if you come at the right time, getting to Gilroy might be just as fast as getting to somewhere else. I'm an LCI as far as people that live in Gilroy. And the only other one I'm aware of is Martha, who's busy doing public health work. I could possibly help with some things, but as far as the schools, I agree that there's some schools that we have trouble getting a lot going on, and so sometimes, if we set something up, it might be good to have a way where if a school's not using the money or not wanting something, that money could go to other schools that are more active. I have seen a big difference at the school I do the most work at. We went from having 0 bicycle riders to consistently having 25 to 30 a day by doing the Safe Routes to School stuff that we've done. So I see that as valuable, and I definitely anticipate putting some money into contracting with the coalition or someone similar, or something that continues supporting the things we do have going at the schools. And I've worked a lot with the coalition doing their bike rodeos, and they do great work with those. And I've shadowed some of their in-class education. I think that's valuable as well. But we'll see how much different things cost and what how much funding we have to how we want to divide up that funding. We do have, though, something great, regardless of what happens in elementary school, that I brought up and we're all aware of, is the middle schools are all going to have something really excellent going. But we don't want to wait till middle school to get the kids walking bike.
Well said.
Is this helpful at all for where you guys are trying to go?
I think it is helpful. I took some of the comments from last month's meeting and took it back to management and the director. And his last thought that he wanted me to share with you guys is his approach now. Is he's thinking that he may want to partner up, bigger bang for the buck. Maybe you're talking Morgan Hill, see if we could partner up with their money and go out with a bigger RFP, so we could attract maybe a bigger company or group or somebody to help both the cities with a Safe Routes to School program.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the approach. We were trying to get together with the conference call last week, but emergency situation came up and we had to cancel that. So that's back in the planning stages. Hopefully we'll get that call set up this week or next week. So that's in the plans right now to try and move forward with something like that. But in terms of some of these things, we can talk about maybe funding that with a budget program, with the budget next time around, and maybe we say, well, we're going to fund $970 in your training budget next year, and we'll put 30 towards a pop-up, or 950 and then another 20 towards t-shirts. I don't know. We could be creative in some of that stuff. I think so long as we keep within $1,000 that the council wants to go ahead and put towards your training on an annual basis. So we can be creative, I think, on some of that. But let me take this back and share it again with management and just kind of see where we go on some of that. But this is good direction at a minimum.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do.
Is a really good scope for us in terms of what to put in that RFP.
Okay, because this stuff right here, I don't want to. I would hate to sit around and wait for the budget process again to happen when this is perfectly allowed to be drawn down from the funds that we have. You just need to have an evaluation metrics. You need to be able to show what your goals are, the events, and we're already making an impact. It would be stuff like here. This is going to be a gap that we need to start filling before at least March. Stuff's going to start trickling away. I do have some incentives for the schools, but those are slowly going to be losing away.
I'm talking about specifically some of the one-off purchase type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see sending an invoice to the VTA for a pop-up tent. I don't know if that's going to fly.
Okay. Because when I talked to Jane Shin about it and I asked her specifically the needs for doing the community outreach, she said that's allowable.
I could contact her.
Yeah, she just said she needed an actual work plan.
Well, see, that's the work plan. Yeah. It's a balance for us between staff availability to do some of the stuff and, paying for the buck. And I would rather put all the money towards engagement and encouragement in the classrooms and in the schools. And I think, it's a balancing act. Let us run with this and see where we go with this. But I see the need, and this is very helpful. This and the presentation that you gave, I think would be very helpful.
So I kind of agree that he might be able to get us the things we want without using the Measure B money.
Awesome.
For the things for, just the commission on our desk.
Exactly, some of that stuff.
Does anybody have anything else to do public comment?
I thought it was interesting, the concept of getting businesses involved and having people go around the businesses. I think something like that could be exciting for people walking or biking. But I think this commission already has the connections to do that pretty well without necessarily paying somebody to do that. That's all.
All right, well, I'll open it up to public comment. Elisa?
For those who don't know me, I'm Martha's other better half, supporting the Safe Routes to School program here in Gilroy. And I just wanted to offer Santa Clara County public health support. And if you have any additional questions, if you're looking to see what other options that there are, as you're deciding as a city what you want to do with this funding, we can provide some additional agencies or resources and information on to see all your options and really have a clear understanding of what to do. That is operating that service support. The other thing I wanted just to mention too is I think it's really important too. It's great that we're really promoting the bike education, because I think that that's really needed in our schools, and especially a lot of our schools I've seen a huge increase in that bike need. And I just want to make sure too that also for some of the schools that we work with may not have such a heavy focus on the bike piece, and really wanting to make sure that pedestrian education is also part of your education and encouragement. So really thinking, I feel like often it's represented more with the bike information, so I want to make sure that pedestrians are also represented, and also really reaching out to the equity component, making sure that those communities that may not necessarily may reach out to you personally for that need, they still need to be reached out for that support. And really for us, what we've been finding is really engaging neighborhoods and engaging the community agencies in your own backyard, looking at how to look at supporting them through that, providing that service. So that's the whole point of our program, is to really build sustainability with doing the community engagement piece with our own community members. Really thinking about how can we continue to do that, providing that service now that our Safe Routes to School grant is ending. You guys are continuing to move forward with promoting this.
Thank you.
No, thank you for coming. I actually had in mind, maybe I was going to do it later during our Safe Routes to School piece, but I was going to suggest that along with the decision we're making, it might be a good time to have you come back sometime in the coming months and show us how the most recent data is. We haven't seen any data for a long time. How the data has turned out from the last year or so, and how it turned out for the grant overall, as well as maybe the surveys that went out, although I don't know when that data will be available.
Yes, I'll let you go and want to get some information.
So January for the surveys, but yeah, so we could wait for that, but maybe that there's other data that might be available sooner.
Anything else back up here? So if I could just get a motion just to approve this work plan, like our other work plans, if there's anything inside here that you guys feel should be brought back or changed or worked or didn't work for us, this is just a nice document to have and it kind of fits in exactly what we've been doing already and what we're going to be doing forward.
I'll make a motion to approve that work plan.
You get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Would you like Neuron to come up and do the back and angle, or should we start back from the top again?
Let's go back from the top.
Okay. So Carolyn, would you mind coming up and giving your presentation? This is item 6B, Valley Transportation Authority Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee report.
I apologize for how I dressed today. Caltrain had a different idea on whether I could undergo home change after work. So my report is in the agenda packet, and I only have a little to add on it. And take some questions. And one thing I have to add on it is regarding possibly doing an infrastructure ride for SVBC. There seems to be some interest, and I've got the contact info that I got from John Cordes, who's the ex officio member of the VTA from SVBC. So I can pass that on. Yeah, after John introduced the two of us over email, she sent me information on their next two infrastructure rides coming up, which we really just checked out. One's in Fremont and one's in Cupertino. I've got the info on that. Actually, let me see. The Fremont one is this coming Friday, 8:30 a.m. near Fremont Park. And Cupertino is following Friday, 9 a.m. at Trailhead Cyclery on Stevens Creek. So it looks really interesting. And I think Gilroy has a lot to recommend it for doing infrastructure too. So we're talking about there's a lot happening down here.
Neuron wants to do one. He said he wants to bring everybody around and do a ride.
So any questions on my report?
No, thank you, and thank you for sharing that BPAC survey on there too. Maybe at some point as that sort of develops or whatnot, maybe either that's worth a presentation in its own at some point.
Yeah. And that might be good to have a SUBC come down and talk about.
Cool.
Yeah, and you did catch that the Gilroy BPAC was the highest response rate. In the BPAC.
Score. You take that back to San Jose.
I've been on an infrastructure right in Cupertino before, and I've had in mind that it'd be great to do something like that here.
Totally.
Especially if we can get some city staff and commissions beyond this commission involved. That's what really stood out to me there is that city council members and things on the right.
Thank you, Carolyn. Next up is the Safe Routes to item 8A, Safe Routes to School update. Sean Reedy, I'll let you start it.
Okay, so we just had a Safe Routes to School task force meeting last week. Patrick, Zach, and I were there. Neuron was there. There was a representative from Gilroy Police Department there in place of Sergeant Stanford, and we also had school district administration there, as we usually do. Although Cheryl Galloway, if you guys haven't heard, who was kind of the person who most directly worked with Safe School, is now no longer working with the school district as of last Friday. So it's unfortunate that she'll be gone. So we'll be looking to see who replaces her. The school district does support us continuing to attempt to use Measure B funds to extend bike and pedestrian education, like bike rodeos and bike events and in-class education. They were eager to hear about how we might be able to support infrastructure. They always like hearing reports from Lara about what infrastructure projects are happening. But we pointed out that the specific funds that our commission deals with in general, and we make recommendations about, are not for infrastructure. And so we made sure we reiterated that we're specifically talking about a small amount of money for education and encouragement. Other than that, CHP came up. The CHP is doing some pedestrian safety courses at Glenview Elementary School. So Officer Maselli from CHP is working with the principal there to make sure that happens. There was discussion of public health is going to be providing a fix-it station at Christmas Hill Park, and they want to make sure they work with us in the schools to do a ribbon cutting event for that. I let them know that the Roman Channel Trail project will be done in October, and we should be able to do a ribbon cutting for that. But I gave an update about why we're still waiting for a date to figure that out. But that he would be able to work with organizing, facilitating different groups to be able to do activities at that and have ribbon cutting. kind of the question we were left with and trying to figure out was who's going to be promoting activities and participation and recruiting parent volunteers at schools to make sure things keep happening with Safe Routes to School. And one of the school board members suggested maybe our Bicycle Pedestrian Commission could split some of the schools up among our group to make sure that no schools get completely left out as far as being encouraged to participate. If we were to say contract with SBPC, they certainly provide services and they could even help with outreach, but it would be probably much more effective if they had people from our commission and others also reaching out to the schools and the parent clubs and the parent ELAC groups and going to meetings and making sure that the parents are aware of things they can be involved in and support. Because it really comes down to you can get in front of a principal and speak with them and get them interested, but they really don't have time to manage or do any of the things themselves. It's about getting the parents involved. And that's all I have, I think, from that meeting and from Safe Routes to School in general right now. I did do a family fun bike night at Rod Kelly in late August, and it went well, and I was able to take 4 high school volunteers that we'd gotten from an event where the school district invited us to work with public health to do some trainings for incoming 9th grade students to start getting their volunteer hours, and some of them were already interested in helping us with bike and pedestrian education events, so that was exciting. I don't know if Zach or Patrick has anything they want to mention from the task force meeting or in general that I might have forgotten.
Sure, I was also at that meeting, and Sean did cover on most of the salient points there. I would like to make mention of the fact that there was a few other strategies brought before. Sean mentioned that we might branch off and take ownership of 2 elementary schools, meet with the principal, see where they're at, how can we facilitate the activities that SRTS currently provides within the best of our abilities. But more importantly, just being involved on the ground level, maybe even encouraging the local PTAs for each school to have a position that also overlaps with SRTS. So an SRTS coordinator within the PTA itself. So these are a lot of strategies that we were discussing, and just to fill that void once this funding dries up and we lose the county support. So it was a really helpful stakeholder meeting, and I hope the next one is just as good.
And I volunteered to put together like a list. One thing that we realized is that there's not really sort of like a one-page document that's got like Chris Maselli's information, Gilroy PD's officer that does education, you know, so that one of us, if we go and meet with the principal or you empower one of the parents, you can go, you know, hey, because a lot of them have good relationships with the principals already. You could be like, hey, here you go. Here's a bunch of contacts, kind of depending on what you want. You know, you don't have to do necessarily everything on here. But so I'm going to try to put that together. Does having 2 schools split up between the 5 of us, does that sound like something people are interested in? The Parks Commission does that with parks.
Right.
So
I don't think it's going to be that hard of an approach. I think it's going to be a light touch. It's about education, so letting the schools know that the resources are there. They just need to take a form of stewardship over them and have some form of enablement for us with our ability to talk to the city and talk to other agencies.
So is that something you guys want to do kind of like offline, or do you guys want to bring it back like next meeting and actually like divvy them up? What do you think, Shad?
My challenge is for me to meet. I work in Palo Alto Monday through Friday. I mean, I have no time to meet this principal stuff, maybe possibly on the weekend, but I would not be able to give a full effort.
It doesn't have to be in person. You can even contact them through other means, through email, phone, just to be on that side as a liaison.
And then, as you know, a couple of us, I can speak for myself, you know, I'm around town, so, you know, it might be just like a third person, like, you know, you might need to go to Luigi Aprea, but you're not quite sure, you know, but I might know a dad there. You could do anything. You could email the principal, and yet the dad could walk in and, you know, knows the principal pretty well and hand the paper off. That's pretty much all we thought about, is that it was just the constant.
Just creating that conduit.
Yeah, and a lot of these schools already have the programs established, so it's probably not a huge effort.
And also, it was discussed that we need a plan that exists beyond even our terms on this commission. So in putting this strategy forward, other people that join the commission after us can follow the same strategy of approaching principals and teachers and the PTA, if this does go through, so this outlasts even us, and that this infrastructure that was, a lot of resources were spent in enabling this stays in place, if not grows.
I think that's an important point, Padre. I think the main idea is that it's something that is in writing. It happens in meetings, and it doesn't just disappear and get forgotten about. That we help keep track of which schools have new principals, which schools have programs, let's say for school activities that are functioning and going well, which ones currently might need help, and then somehow among the whole commission that we don't let a whole bunch of schools just fall by the wayside and end up doing nothing is kind of the point. And just have something established so that it's in place no matter who's up here, that there are people from our commission helping to make sure that that's tracked and that it's being supported.
That all comes to mind, some sort of a playbook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. A consistent one. And this was, there was a couple of school members there too, as well as the chief business officer, Alvaro. So they agreed with it too. It'd just be easy for them, for everybody. If someone comes in and asks them something, they can go, hey, actually here's a couple of commission members and officer. And so, yeah, so that way we're all spreading the exact same information.
The perfect world would be kind of like Patrick mentioned, that we got each school club or the district as a whole to kind of put in place that when a parent volunteer that's responsible for safe routes to school leaves, that it's expected that someone will replace them. We're not at that point yet, but we certainly that would be the ideal situation.
Yeah. Okay. Any members from the public that wish to comment? Seeing none. Is there anything else back up here? Okay. All right. Next up is item 8B, General Plan Advisory Committee, GPAC update. Commissioner Chad Reeder.
Yes, so we haven't had a meeting since our last meeting. The next scheduled meeting is October 24th, and then the follow-up on December 12th.
Okay.
At 6:30.
Any members from the public that wish to comment? Seeing none. Okay. Next up is item number 9C, Back and Angle Parking Pilot Program. Hi, Nira.
So, back in Angle Park, we the commission has been interested in back and angle parking in our downtown because there is a mix of bicycle flows with diagonal parking. Before we jump into that with 2 feet, we wanted to do a pilot program. Our council has asked us to bring that forward to them for consideration, and we wanted to bring a recommendation from our VPAC to the council. So we're going to be bringing that in the next month. We wanted to share the proposed pilot program that our interns developed this summer. Unfortunately, our intern's out sick, so she couldn't.
What?
She had it
The
all set up,
opportunity!
ready to go. She's out sick this week. She's got like a nasty virus. So she had it all set up and ready to go, but Nira will be presenting it this evening. And so with that said, Nira, I hope you appreciate that we took effort to put these logos up there on the.
Heck yeah, that looks great.
FYI, if there's anything good, I mean, Gary did it, but if there's any graphic to.
Blame it on the interns.
It's the intern.
Would that say, just kind of show a hand, how many of you are aware of or know what back and angle parking is? Perfect. Well, thank you guys for having me tonight. I really appreciate it. So, with that said, so today we'll go the background of the history and why this got brought to us and what is the current practice now in Gilroy, and again touch base on the pilot program that we're developing and propose you guys to recommend to council at the end of the session. So, first thing is names. Well, we hear multiple different names for back and angle parking. You heard back in diagonal parking, head out diagonal parking, reverse diagonal parking, they're all the same. The purpose of this is we have been having a lot of interest, like Gary said, from the VPAC and also from some of the community of internal bicycle safety in downtown. So from some of our bicycle conference and summits, this was kind of brought up as one of the options or one of the alternatives to our downtown and optimizing the mixed use of the facility. History. So today we learn how to drive, parking has always been a part of our vehicle community. You know, it's mostly has been head-in or parallel parking, whether it's in a parking lot or on streets. That has kind of been part of our building district. The picture down below, that's 1920 in coal time, Washington. That even in 1920, there are some sort of configuration that is, in a way, similar to our downtown Gilroy. You know, diagonal parking, a lot of business right there in the smack middle of the business district. However, there's been a lot of considerations lately in terms of safety, efficiency, and also ease of use. And that's how different type of parking configurations, different type of structures is really been developed. With that said, you know, angle parking, even our current heading angle parking, there's multiple different configurations. There's a 45 degree, 60 degree, 90 degree, and it's all in relations to efficiency and ease of use. And also the last bullet I put on here is capacity. The reason why we kind of evolved from parallel parking is that with this kind of configuration, you're able to stack a lot more car. And you know, if we have a little bit more right away, this can really increase from sometimes triples the amount of car in comparison to parallel parking. So with that said, as parking evolved, there's also problem and issues that's come up with. First ones, you know, can be parking in 2 lanes at a time, or sometimes sticking into a bicycle lane, or open parking into park strips or sidewalk. And then it leads to bigger issues, sometimes parking lot taking a lot of capacities and hazardous for pedestrians. And sometimes it also leads to this, which in a way I gotta give the lady in the right the credit, because that's really handy for loading and unloading. It's right there, it's perfect. So with that said, on a serious matter is that our traditional parkings right now, let's just say, for example, the head and diagonal parking, you have a lot of issues with blind spot. You know, once you come in, yes, it is easier when you go into the park, right? But coming out, it can be very difficult because really all you can see is those things on the green zone. You can't see a vehicle coming in. Sometimes when you're talking about sight distance and stopping sight distance or corner sight distance, this really limits the drivers and also, you know, the other mode of transportation on the roads to be able to make eye contact with the driver when backing out of this kind of configurations. Perfect example of that is shared road in the back of a backing parking. This person riding a bicycle here is not able to make eye contact with the driver. Sometimes the drivers just can take a leap of faith and just back up. And a lot of times you see quite a bit of accidents and collisions that's dealing with this. And additionally, it's on-street loading and unloading, and you know, this can be both for items, also for passengers. You know, sometimes you have kids or maybe a handicap, disabled persons. It can be very difficult when you try to unload off of a heading parking. This is Gilroy. Actually, Photoshop. Luckily, we have some disabled parking around, and I think we add one right in front of the garden as well. So hopefully, this won't be happening as often as shown.
But one of the things you did indicate when we were talking earlier is this is one of the major complaints we get in our downtown is that people, when they park, have to walk behind their vehicles sometimes to get to some of those handicap spaces or out of the handicap spaces to the ramps.
This problem exists in a head-in parking like this or parallel parking scenarios. When sometimes you open the door and creating a dooring scenarios with bicycles. So with that, that's why some jurisdictions introduce back-in-angle parking. Back-in-angle parking is exactly like the name suggests. It's an angle parking that you back into the park. Step one, drive forwards, signals, back into parking. Yes, it might be taking a little bit of effort to park into the stall itself and the traditional head-in, but as you exit, there's quite a bit of benefit to that, and I'll get to that in a bit. So why angle parking? Well, according to some jurisdictions, they find that it's improved visibility greatly. As you can see on these pictures right here, the bicyclist traveling on a Class 2 bike lane can make eye contact directly with the person's about to exit the parking lot. So really on a mixed-use facility, let's say whether it's shared road or Class 2, it can lead to great benefits. It improves, again, safety for cyclists and maybe other modes of traffic when we start getting to those. It improves loading and unloading, again, for passenger and also for items. Like we discussed internally, sometimes when you exit your vehicle, you walk behind to go into the sidewalk directly without having to cross over the vehicle on the travel lane. It's also great for children because when you open a door and whatnot, that door is kind of set as a perimeter or barrier so that the kid doesn't run directly into the street versus a head-in parking is really children can just dash into the road. Just like everything else, back in angle parking also has its own challenges, right? One of the things that with back in angle parking, it's a new concept. It's been around in many different jurisdictions, but to Gilroy, it is a new concept. Not a lot of people here, especially outside of this room, really understands back in angle parking or how to proceed. In fact, as you can see here, one of the main concerns from our police department is this happening, is that people will start crossing on the other lane, start doing a heading parking on the opposite side of the road, and causing other issues and creating even more hazardous scenarios if not done correctly. And secondly, engineering. The city currently does not have any standards for back and angle parking. Other cities like San Francisco does have the standards, but in many cases it's quite unique to the road configurations. In some jurisdictions, it's shown sometimes the width of the back and angle parking of 10 feet, versus some jurisdictions limited to 9.5. And for us, we don't have that standard currently. We have to evaluate our existing infrastructures and see how that can play a part, because the worst thing we want to do is start changing configurations and take away the number of parking spaces, let's say for downtown, where we are currently already hurting for the parking capacity. Okay? And second, we don't have an existing ordinance right now in order to enforce back and angle parking. And that's due to police enforcement. Unfortunately, there are very specific codes in the vehicle codes that allow them to enforce existing parking or traditional parking like the head-in or parallel, but there isn't a specific one for back and angle parking. So theoretically, if we don't have a municipal code specifically addressing back and angle parking, it's really hard to address this, because theoretically, when you have a double yellow, you can cross into the other side of the park. Because again, it's not a physical barrier and it's not a double yellow situation where you can't cross. Right? So again, all of this, again, takes a lot of effort in terms of sometimes the funding, a lot of our resources, but it is one of the options to take care of mixed-use facilities and stuff. So with that, we're proposing a pilot program. Understanding that every city is unique, we want to make sure that we get a feel of how this would work in Gilroy specifically. So with this, our interns take a look at a couple of different locations in the downtown area and suggest that we take a couple spots down on Gilroy Street between 6th and 5th. It has a little bit less volume than Monterey itself, right? It at an area where we have class 3 share the roads bicycle scenarios, right? And also have quite a few spots that we could spare and set up a pilot program there. So this pilot programs will involve something like this, basically taking a couple spots of the existing head-in parking and installing some sort of buffer barrier. It could be a hay bale, could be cones, some sort of soft barriers to basically provide what's the feel of a back and angle parking. We can set up two different criteria. One may be a little bit wider just to show people, to get them interested and try it out. And then we can set up one that is actually the dimension that we would proceed with this for permanent installation, so that they can see the difficulty on these kind of configurations. Yeah. And with that, we also want to collect feedback from people who use these, from people that come in and maybe participate in some of these back and angle parking to see what do they know about back and angle parking. So we'll come up with a couple selected survey questions that we want to collect and be able to put some data together to kind of share these with the BPAC, also with council. So up there is a list of questions that we have come up so far. So hopefully by the end of this session, we want to get some of your feedback as well. Maybe there's additional questions that we can add and be able to get some more data and analysis from these kind of so in terms of tonight's objective, really, we want to get you guys recommendations to take this to council on October 21st to put this pilot program in place and try to get those feedback. In terms of timelines, right now we have it placeholder for council meeting on October 21st, and if it does get approved, we're hoping to get this set up in November and staff these and try to collect those feedback and bring those feedback back to feedback in January 2020 and continue into these options further. I think that's all I have.
Just quickly, one thing we really didn't clarify was how that demonstration would actually work. We proposed it over a 3-day period. We would have it roughly from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., potentially 3 p.m., depending on staffing. We would put a pop-up out there, tables and chairs, have a couple staff out there entirely the whole time. Ask people to go ahead and try the back-end angled parking. Once they used it, to go ahead and then answer a couple questions on the survey, and then ask them to kindly leave the parking spaces and let others try it. So it wouldn't be something where they could use the back and angle parking and then go do their shopping and then come back and occupy those spaces long term, but just to go ahead and continue to move people through that demonstration area on a regular basis. We would be doing outreach through our social media, through flyers, through the Downtown Business Association, through a number of public outreach forums that we do have. So any input we can get from you guys would be appreciated. I know we did have a planning session. Zach, we were able to attend that to help us out with some of that planning for that. So we did give some good input on that. So any other thoughts the commission might have would be appreciated.
One thing Mark mentioned too, I think where we kind of heard this, first heard about this is he suggested different things, but I was just thinking just a button that says I survived back in angle parking. Something on there just as a little kind of, hey, I've been there, and then they can wear it and say, yeah, I actually did it. It wasn't too bad, but just something like that, and then give it to someone they can take off. And I think cost-wise, that would be cheap as well.
So I have an idea for that, because I did volunteer to, we were talking about doing some incentives, like, hey, come over here and do this, and we have this for you. So I was gonna approach Amelia's, because during one of the valets, they actually made fresh baked cookies, and on the back of the cookie they wrapped up, it had like a 10% off to use this weekend or whatever, because it was Thursday Night Live, using it by Friday. So maybe it'd be easy just to print up, right, like 50 stickers that said I survived back in angle parking, and see if Amelia's wants to do a little something on the side. But that would take care of it, and hand them a cookie. A chocolate chip, fresh chocolate chip cookie.
And if they don't get used, well, staff.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, well, take it back here.
That's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody have anything else before we do a motion? And I'll open it up for public comment too. Any members from the public that wish to comment? If you could just come up here, that would help. Thank you. Beth Sullivan.
I'm worried about the senior citizens and backing up. Sorry for enough to get people parked that way. What's the other comment? I would like to see it announced in the newspaper. I'm low tech. I don't have a smartphone, so I don't follow social media. Until recently, I have gone to your website. I think the newspaper would reach a few more people to get more of a broad area of people that can try that. So, that's all.
Thank you.
You can do press release. Old fashioned.
Yeah.
I didn't call you old.
We should have put it in the sales tax measure surveys that just showed up at all of our doorsteps. Could have been a little insert. You want a cookie? All right. Anything else back here?
So if we can just get your comments, I know Patrick, you're a big data guy. Are those the kind of questions you would think would be successful? And our goal was to not ask a whole lot of questions, and have an iPad there. We're not going to ask people to fill out the survey, but have staff there, the interns there, to actually ask people those questions. Set it up on SurveyMonkey so we can just boom,
Right.
boom, boom, boom.
The questions I see there, how much of it focuses on intent to use? So if there's back and angle parking and that exists on Eagleberry, I want a question that focuses on, if this was all back and angle parking, would I avoid parking there to go somewhere else? I need a question like that, because that's going to be the first measure of intent. And that's what I would care about way before I start digging into further data.
Did you get that one there?
Oh yeah, sorry. I want data on intent. So let's say Eagleberry was converted to back-end angle parking, the whole street. But let's say other streets near it weren't. I want a question that covers that sort of comparison. If that was converted, would you stop parking on that street?
To the point.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Any other thoughts?
Better cycling for me. Sorry. Yeah, but I agree. That's good.
I like it. I like that the city's considering doing this, and I can see the value in it. It's definitely going to be all about the education. So I'm really going to be interested in seeing how it works, what the feedback is. Even with these questions, I think it's fine. But yeah, it's definitely intense. If it was scaled up, would this diminish my interest in going downtown? Which is ironic because we're the Bicycle Pedestrian Commission, and we're trying to get people out of cars.
Mm-hmm. So we'll go with these 5 questions and add that 6th.
Sounds good.
Hey, Gary, have you reached out to Hollister?
To Hollister?
The city of Hollister, their transportation engineer. They implemented this down in front of their high school. And I'd love to hear their feedback. I'd love to hear them say.
Reach out. We have not.
No, I think the intern did reach out to San Francisco.
Okay, well, I mean, Hollister means more similar to
Hollister's more of a local.
I think it's much similar demographics.
And
I'm really curious.
And I had mentioned too in that planning meeting that Morgan Hills Unified School District does this.
Oh, yeah. Certainly.
Do we reach out to Morgan? No, reach out.
They were trying to reach out to Santa Barbara, and I think they reached out to all the way to Pennsylvania. And so they were able to find research papers on how they can run the entire downtown thanks to
I tried the Santa Barbara one on East Beach. It worked out great. No one seemed to be confused about it. Yeah.
We'll do that additional research.
Just similar towns, similar demographics.
Yeah. Hollister. Very good.
Okay, so the possible action is the motion to recommend City Council approve the back and angled pilot program.
I
That
second
sound
that
good?
motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Thank you, Neuron. Thank you. Next up, pedestrian safety subcommittee interviews. Patrick Flo, I'll let you take it.
Fantastic. So last meeting, I made note of the fact that I'm ready to start interviewing for the 3 subcommittee members on my pedestrian safety subcommittee. I'll be interviewing members until all positions are filled. So at this time, I would ask the members of the audience and the public if there's anyone present today that would like to do a brief interview to be the first person to join the subcommittee.
All right.
All right then.
Table till next time.
Table till next time.
Is there any public comment? All right. Good attempt to reach out. Want to say something?
Oh, I think, Patrick, I think I've heard that you do have some people that indicated they're interested to you. They're just not here tonight. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Next up is item E. And so I had originally put this on here, requesting meeting changes because I had put in for a different shift at the fire station, and that is no longer. I didn't get the I didn't get the spot, so cancel that. Any meeting changes. Next up, number 10, correspondence. Nothing really to say about those. Items number 11, oral reports by commission members. Sean Reedy, I'll let you go first.
One thing I want to make sure that everyone's aware of is our commission chair, Zach Hilton, will be recognized for YMCA award for, I forget the specific category they have you under, but basically.
Healthy hero.
Yeah. So there's going to be a dinner event. It's a fundraiser for YMCA, but Zach and a few other people will be recognized, and there tends to be a lot of good political representation from the community at that event. So it's a great honor for our commission that one of our commissioners is being recognized. And is that October 11th?
11th. Yes. Yeah, Sarah's Vineyards.
Is it open to the public?
Yes.
Yes.
Tickets are online.
However, yes, it's a fundraiser, so you have to purchase tickets and support.
We can't say we know Zach.
You can try to get in.
They'll charge you double when you
They're like, get around back.
Also, National Night Out is coming up, I believe, October 1st, which is, I'll check
That's correct.
Yes, October 1st, and we will be having a booth there and giving out helmets. I will be there for sure. And anyone else is welcome to come out.
And that flyer's in our packet too. Yeah. If anybody wants to see it. Commissioner Patrick Flood.
So I just want to make note, I formally applied for Cat Tucker's empty position on Caltrain Advisory Committee. So I'll be hearing back sometime this month or next on whether or not I got that role. And we might hope to advocate for South County, specifically Gilroy. We're at the end of the line. We pay the highest fares, and we're not really advocated very much at all for it, and that's what Cat Tucker was doing. So I hope to take up the reins and steward those initiatives and bring back anything we discuss in front of that needs of this commission and share with the state.
Thank you. Commissioner Lionel Gonzalez.
I just wanted to see if we can further discuss the opportunity to reach out to Las Madres nonprofit org, support them in their upcoming events in November. They are having their first ever turkey hot trot event. It'll be over by the Christmas Hill Park to the sports complex. So definitely a family event, a family-oriented walk. I think it's a 5K walk, run, or even bike. So hopefully we can provide some sort of endorsement from our commission, as well as any potential sponsorship to one of the mile markers. I think the amount is $100 a mile marker. So if we can put that on the agenda for next meeting, that'd be great. Some education awareness that we definitely want to support.
Okay. Commissioner Chad Reeder.
Actually, I don't think I have any.
All right. I'm glad you made it. It's a good meeting. I just have a few updates, some sort of state level stuff. So SB 127 that I brought up before, which is that Complete Streets initiative, is passed the Assembly and the Senate. It's currently sitting on the Governor Newsom's desk. So I'm hoping that by next meeting we'll have some good news about that for other communities that aren't really served by heavy bicycle coalitions and strong commissions and good, strong leaders, that those that are underrepresented can actually have those initiatives in their city to encourage more walking and biking. Another cool one that passed through is SB 400, which is an e-bike voucher that was signed into law. It's basically getting polluting vehicles off the road, and you can actually turn them in for an e-bike. So I thought that one was pretty cool. I don't really know too much more information on that. Yeah, and that's all I have. Next up is staff comments.
Two quick items. We have already started our budgeting process for the next fiscal year, and which started with our CIP program. We have already started putting together projects and brainstorming those ideas, and putting together a schedule for review of projects with commissions. So we will be bringing our project list to this commission for review in February. Looking for comments at that point. So we'll make sure and get that on the agenda when that swings around. So just a little bit of a preview on that. The second thing I wanted to indicate is we have received our ordered signs.
Yay! I love the blue, man. That is so cool.
So thanks to the work that Zach did to fill out the documentation, we are recognized as a bike-friendly community. I think that's a pretty darn neat accomplishment of our city. So
yeah, totally.
We're going to be putting signs up throughout our community over the next month. We've got a confirmation from our crews, and so look for these out in the community. So
good job, you guys.
To the commission on that. A lot of hard work, guys.
Yeah, good job, everybody. Good job. That's awesome.
What was our original number? We added a couple of
How many? 9? 10?
Yeah,
10.
If I said, do we have a spots where we're going to put them?
Yeah, we were gonna like ask. Yeah, later on as they develop. Yeah, different spots.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Excellent. So that's all I have.
Thank you. So next up would be the agenda items for the next meeting. So like one that Lionel talked about was that turkey trot for Las Madres. I know that they're looking for like basically almost like a letter of support, which is something that we standardly do, and I have a verbiage that we already like have with our logo and stuff. So it sounds like if everybody's okay with that, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and drop that up, and I could bring that back and put it in our consent calendar. But in the meantime, work with MyNL and work with that organization, and get them what they need as far as promoting this and getting that down. And then next month we can, in the October meeting, we can talk about actually staffing one of those water stations. Does that sound good for next meeting? Okay. I have before I go off, does anybody have anything that they want to add? I have a couple of ideas. Well, number one, the next thing that has to come up next meeting is our presentation to city councils on November 4th. So next month we need to review that. And in past, we were all here, but Patrick wasn't. In past, what we'll do is I have the PowerPoint, and I'll just draft it up, and I'll be right there at the podium and go over it, and then whatever changes and stuff like that we want to do, then I'll basically just be writing that down. It's 5 slides, mainly pictures, not a whole lot of words, just a summary recap of what's been going on throughout the year. So,
you said just before, like
yes,
before, no chance to
yes,
comments.
yes, yeah. And then another thing that I think Beth Sullivan might be interested in this too is that there are Adopt a Highway signs on Hecker Pass Highway, and I don't know whether that would be an avenue or not for us to get who we are and what we're trying to do out there. I don't know what the volunteer, I don't know what you have to do in order if you do adopt a highway, but what I do know is that they have available signs, and all the signs these days are not just like written over there. There's an actual like nice logo that's printed on there. So it's just an option. I could do some research on it and bring it back to you guys and see what the commitment would be. But if maybe that state agency sees that we're willing to also put boots on the ground and do some work, maybe they'll be willing to do some work too. So I thought maybe I'd try that angle. It's free to do. So I'll bring that back to you guys. Another thing that and Gary can talk about it too a little bit is that we need to somehow consider a multifamily housing bike parking code for developments. In the consent calendar, well, actually it wasn't in this one. It was in the one last month where we commented on that, the apartment complex. We were really heavy on what we thought should be required in there, and they were defaulting a lot of these developments and defaulting back on what VTA's standards were. But this developer on a lot of the questions like, well, okay, once you put in bike parking, and they would literally say, well, there's no code in town. And somehow there's a loophole with new affordable housing state laws that the green building code standards don't apply to certain bonus densities of these affordable housing. And I don't know if Shiloh's heard about this, but I tried reaching out to CalBike, that agency down the conference we're going to next month. Yeah. I tried to reach out to their like advocacy and policies and see if they've heard it. And what they don't know how that got looped around with state, but they did suggest that other cities have done it too, where they just created their own code. That's what has to be done. Yeah, basically just like, well, here's what our standards are, and I'm sure you could find majority of our standards already on a piece of paper. I would imagine it just has to go through that code process. So I don't know whether that's something would be helpful if we initiated that and talked about it and brought ideas back, or what you guys think about that. But I know it's needed.
It's needed. There's a lot of zoning code changes that have to occur. That is one of them. And I've talked to planning. I've talked to Sue about the need for some of those things and the changes to our parking regulations for vehicles, let alone bicycles. So there's a lot of changes that need to occur. It's a timing and staffing thing.
Okay. So for right now, I mean, we have a pretty good voice in the planning process with those letters that we've been writing and talking about our standards, and that usually I've found that in the developers that I've worked with so far, such as like the patio, they listen to the input and they want to do the right thing. I haven't really met anybody yet that really is like, no, I don't care. I'm not going to do any of that. Most of them want to work with it and they understand it. And we have a lot of supporting stuff, such as bicycle friendly community and others around it. So that's just, I mean, we'll table it. We don't need to bring it back, but it's just something we're willing to help you out when you need it. Okay. And
the way I've done it in the past is when we did our last jurisdiction, when we did our bike master plan, there was specific language in there that recommended changes to the ordinance, and then that was adopted with the adoption of bike plan.
Okay.
So that would be the same route I would take. And we are looking to, with this next budget, adopt or recommend funding an update to our bike and trails and pedestrian plans. So that would be the time to do it.
Nice. Nice. Okay, well with that, adjournment to our next regular meeting, October 22nd at 6 p.m. Thank you.
About changing that to the 24th?
No, I canceled it. I scratched it.
You didn't get the promotion.
No.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Adopt the highway. You just have
Oh, there you go. You're looking at it?
controlling vegetation. Ooh. Can we cut back some trees? April 12th. April 12th.
Get a work party.
It's free. He said you just have to apply for it. So anyway, it's
all right. I'm gonna look into it and bring it
like
back
I
to
said,
you
I mean,
guys.
and you can volunteer, or you can actually pay somebody to do it for you.